If I had to start again from scratch being a runner, but I could use all the information I knew from a lifetime of running, I would focus on these 6 things. I would focus on this mentality. I would focus on my strength. I would learn about what's in here and how it works. I would build this spine. I would work out how you transfer all of that into these. And then I would start learning about tech, wearable tech, the things that are going to improve my performance even more. But we're going to start the journey up here. I'm going to start by focusing on the brain and the internal environment, but my external environment in the house and how a runner would use their mind, brain, whatever you want to call it, to get the best out of their running and the best out of themselves as a person. And you'll understand the reasons in a minute, but I'm going to show you the bedroom first. Because I've been a runner for a long time, but it was when I started doing this that my running really went to the next level. And the thing is, it's so simple. So before I set my external environment, I set my internal environment. I started switching books that I read which were fiction to non-fiction and self-improvement books and learning about myself. And it didn't have to be related to running necessarily, but it was how I can be a better person. So I started reading books about habit, about motivation, about drive. And then one book became 5, became 10, became audiobooks, became 20. And suddenly I'm a motivated person internally. The environment is there. So then it came to external environment. Oh, sorry, Mary. I started creating processes that would make it easier for me to get out and run rather than rely on motivation. We've talked about it a lot. I have my running drawer. I can just come in, grab, that's easy. We have our trainer rotation where I know I can just come and grab the right trainer for the right situation. Everything is just made in our house to make it easy to run. So then I took all the equipment I had, I took all the internal knowledge I had, and I started creating processes in the house. Like I know by putting my trainers near the front door, it's more likely that I'm going to go out. I see them, they're ready. In fact, I pretty much have routines for everything. I have a set routine for my whole morning before I go to work that involves coffee, making breakfast, eating breakfast, doing my hair, all of those things. Everything is optimized so my life is smooth and removes thought. So really what I'm saying is that I gained knowledge and now I've used knowledge to optimize my environment, so it's really a thoughtless process, very habitual, and it gets me doing the things I want to do, like making YouTube videos, running, getting to work on time, having a productive day at work. My life is very, very structured, but I like it that way, and I'm proud that I did the research to make it that way. And the way I see arms in this story is representative of strength and conditioning. See, the thing is, if you were to ask me what I thought the perfect runner was, I would tell you it would be someone who definitely invested in themselves outside of running. And that could be before they get injured, prehab, looking after themselves. It can be after rehab, probably a little bit too late. But the thing is, people get this view of strength and conditioning of going to the gym and working out hard, and it doesn't have to be that way, because while this kind of thing requires a bit of knowledge, maybe even some coaching or background information, there's so many things that you can do that don't. For example, have you ever tried to just put a stretching routine at the end of your runs? Now, that's a really good way of strength and conditioning at really low cost, because let's just say you're going out for an hour run, just think in your mind it's an hour and 10, factor in a stretch afterwards. And there's so many more options other than going to the gym. Like, have you ever considered a yoga? I don't think this is actually not a yoga move. I don't know why I did this. Or Pilates, which is also really good for core strength, and things that you can do at home. There's resistance band workouts, follow along YouTube videos, a few on the channel by the way. But what I'm trying to convey is that strength and conditioning, if you're gonna do it right, it doesn't have to be in the gym. It can be at home. It can be so many different ways, and you can find the way that works for you. Like, I know people that like a good hour session, and I know people that like to put just a 10-minute session on the end of each of their runs, just a little bit of strength and conditioning, but do it regularly, maybe once a day. But the core message is, if you want to be a solid runner and a runner for life, you've got to invest in yourself in some way on top of running. That's just what I believe, and I think it's for good quality of running, but also good quality of life, and the evidence is very clear on that. So when it comes to arms and legs and body and everything, get strengthening, get conditioning. And to talk about spine, we've come to Rockfi Park to watch Mikey and John do something that demonstrates the point perfectly, but also
something pretty crazy. So we're actually at the Thai Ultra Running Championships, where runners from all over Thailand, runners from all over the world come and run in events and distances such as 24 hours on a flat 4K loop, 100K, 50K, I think there's even down to a 5K.
Yeah, there is.
And obviously, John and Mikey are doing the silly big distances. So what Mikey and John are doing is they're callousing their minds. They're getting their mental strength and resilience high by picking silly things to do, like running a 24-hour race. And John's doing the 100K. Okay, while Mary's out with John and Mikey, I'm waiting and I'll go out on the next lap. But when I talk about spine, what I really mean is what I'm seeing John and Mikey do right now is create this bank of mental resilience, of mental toughness. And it starts in running, but it bleeds over into the rest of your life.
So believe it or not, the hard decision you make to do hard things gives you a kind of subconscious permission to do that in your life. Maybe to go for the job you thought you couldn't get, but you will. Or ask that person out, or so many other difficult things. But it doesn't start with having to run a 100-kilometer race. It's way easier than that.
And what Mikey and John are doing is they're taking on challenges that scare the bejesus out of them, but that they still do, and it's creating their spine, it's creating their kind of portfolio of resilience, or their personality, where these are the things that we do. I'm watching a friend do a 24-hour race and another friend do a 100-kilometer race, both pushing to their very limits. And they've all still got to go to work the next day as well, by the way. Mikey's happy now.
Oh, found an ice cream.
And sometimes that makes all the difference. Your family are just up there by the band.
Yeah!
You've done it, Johnny! It's over!
And Mikey put in a heroic shift and completed 133 kilometers in the 24 hours. Grit from both.
And you might think that there's a world of difference between doing 100 kilometers or a 24-hour race and just going out to run in the rain, but the point is that when you start to make these tough decisions early on in your journey, and you start to make a number of them, like going out in the rain or getting up in the morning to run when you don't want to,
or doing that challenging hilly run that scares you a bit.
Yes, it has a compound effect. They build up over time and you end up here. You don't have to end up here, by the way. You might never end up doing stuff like this, but you might push your own limits to some degree somewhere down the line, if a half marathon is your limit, or a marathon. But by doing the little things, you're building that spine, that ability to do the big things if you want to.
And once we've got our head right, once we've got our arms right, it's time to work out how we get what is inside here right, inside the torso. So mainly talking about our heart and our lungs. How do you train them properly in each session to get the most out of every session? Now, I appreciate I'm going to oversimplify this hugely, but what you really need to focus on is three main styles of session, I guess. You want to work on your aerobic base, you want to work at or around your threshold, which is your body's ability to deal with the lactate that it accumulates through training, and you want to improve your VO2 max. And if I was a newer runner, probably I'd focus on building my aerobic base first, because that's supposed to account for 80% of all of your running anyway. And your aerobic base is your body's ability to take in oxygen and take it to your muscles and use it in the most efficient way. And these kind of sessions are the easiest. They're the ones where you go out and run. Easy. But it's not so easy. And then you think, well, all right, how do I work on my threshold? Now, very briefly, your lactate threshold is the point at which your body accumulates lactate, and then it can't deal with flushing it away, and so it has to slow you down because it needs more oxygen to do that. And the reason for training at this threshold is because the more you play around with your body's ability to get rid of lactate, the better it gets at it. It's actually that simple. I know, and I can appreciate you keep seeing Jesse wandering around in the background here. And finally, VO2 max, and you've probably heard this phrase a lot and not known what it is, but again, very simply, it's the body's ability at the top level to take in oxygen and get it to the working muscles. And the higher the VO2 max, the better that you can do that. So there comes a point when you're just breathing in oxygen and your body has no ability to use any more oxygen. It's at that top level. That's your VO2 max. And you can train at this and push it even higher, so your body gets better at using oxygen at even higher intensities. So if you train at these different intensities, you're probably going about it the right way. 80% easy, and then 20% playing around at threshold and VO2 max. And don't worry, there are some session ideas for each of these types of training coming in this video. if we're talking about the shoes, how about these? I'm talking wearable tech, and yes, it starts with the shoes. And there are so many shoes out there, by the way, so it's really important, first of all, to get these right for different sessions, different levels of performance. Some are for race, some are for easy runs. And if you really don't know your type of shoe that you need, I would recommend going to a running store, a local running store, where they'll do a little gait analysis. And these are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to wearable tech. What about the watch? Okay, this is really important for runners. We're Garmin fan kids, but basically there are a lot of watches out there at a lot of different levels that will help you dial in your training, from being able to look at your heart rate, your time, your pace, give you some of the watches actually pretty much wipe your nose for you and feed you. I mean, it's getting to that point, isn't it? Like you've got ones that I have a map, and even on a 35 kilometer run, it can tell me everywhere I'm going.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
And then once you've dialed in the right shoes, once you've dialed in the right watch, you can start doing things that's really gonna help your training, like, if you can see this, heart rate monitor. The chest strap heart rate monitors, I think, are just far more reliable than the watch wrist ones, and they really help me dial in my training. They really help me get the best out of each session. This one in particular, on an easy run, is going to keep me in zone 2. And then, of course, there's like different levels of clothes quality. You start thinking about whether you wear a t-shirt, whether you wear a vest, or what you run in, how long you run in, does it chafe, does it hurt? There's so much to think about, even when it comes to outfit, like Mary. I mean, Mary's always thinking about outfit, right?
I love it.
And then you start going down the rabbit hole pretty quickly. There's poles, there's hats, there's sunglasses, there's arm strap heart rate monitors now. There's so many things. We're not gonna get bogged down on it, but I guess my point is you need to start dialing in on the technology you like, the trainers you like, the watch you like, the heart rate monitor that you like, all of those things. Learn early, and then get the most out of your training.
So once we've learned about the different kinds of training we can do, we need to learn specific sessions that show us how we can implement that kind of training. So what I mean by that is, now you know the terms, you know what aerobic base is, and you know what VO2 max is. You then need to learn the sessions that enable you to work on those things. So obviously now we're out on an aerobic base session. How do we make that interesting? Well, it's good to go together so we can talk, hold a conversation. It's keeping the training in the right zone. Mix up our routes, explore new places, maybe go on the trails, or within the session, do fastest last kilometer, so you're running slow, saving something in the tank, or add in hotspots. So there's loads of things you can do to spice it up.
Uh-oh, it's starting to rain. And then if you want to train tempo, or at threshold I should say, it's really important that you at least know your heart rate zones so that you can get to around the right place. If you don't have access to a lab where you have to pay to get your actual lactate threshold, where they do the blood prick testing, but usually somewhere in the middle of zone 3 is around that right area. Oh, we just had to run in because it started to rain, potentially heavy. So tempo sessions are sessions where you're around 8 out of 10 in terms of your effort. It could be things like kilometer repeats or a good shout, 1200 meter repeats, 800 meter repeats, or even running 5 minutes at your 10K-ish pace. So you play around with things that are gonna last between 2 to 5 minutes, really. It's getting really rainy, I'm glad we came in.
And then for VO2 max, we love 400 repeats or sharp, short intervals from 800 down, maybe varying the distance, things that really get you going hard. But if you want to know more about those sessions, we've got some links to some videos that explains more.
Yeah, we've basically made a video about all of these sessions, all of this different type of training on the channel. It's crazy, look! I'm very glad we weren't caught out in this. If you liked the video and it brought you some value, then consider subscribing, but never a hard sell. But also, you might like this video, which is 10 unique running tips from my YouTuber friends, which I think you're going to find really valuable as well. Thanks for watching. See you Sunday.